No, she posed around it, and it still bears the name Artist Entrance. Even though it's been closed for many, many, many years, it fit perfectly for what we were doing. Now this speaks to the other project we worked on, Mala. If you look at this picture in one direction, it looks like an entity is taking possession of her and choking her around the neck. And if you flip that over, it looks like a warm embrace. It's a very strange picture, but that's the uniqueness of the working together that we did that. And working with her, I was able to come up with so many different things just through theory and application. This is some of my work. I did a lot of work with artists and models and performers and entertainers. Still interested in doing as much as this is possible. I worked with people in the theater, people in the fashion industry. You know, so everybody always needs a good headshot. So I still like to do that work whenever I get it. Now, through my work with the Newer Museum, I have been very fortunate to photograph some true icons. I worked with James Earl Jones and Elizabeth Catlett. You know, they made some appearances here in the area, and I love working with the museum because it is an excellent place for us to, you know, bring such legends together, and I'm so grateful that they allowed me to come and do photography for them. This project is a project that Stephen McKenzie, one of our Newark residents, was involved in. He created a 100-foot painting. It stretched from one end of the block to the other.
Print.
A print. It was a print. And it took up a whole block, and everyone had a chance to paint on it. And this is some of the stuff that we came up. We invited a lot of local people and kids and families, and everybody had a hand in printing our mural. And it was quarter mile in length, and we had lots of fun doing it. It was a beautiful afternoon. It was a sunny day, and there was a lot of artwork generated from it. And these are just some of the people that came out that day. Quarter mile print. This is some more of the images of the musician that I shot. Like I said, this fountain is right here at PSE&G. And like I said, I had a little jazz concert all to myself. He played and I did photography. And the water cascaded in the background. And it was very cool. And I really, really liked the imagery. He was a good subject to work with. And the backdrop, I thought was perfect for what we were doing. So, you know, jazz at night, that's really cool. It worked out very well.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Sorry. Yep.
All right, thank you so much, Stafford. So now I'm going to grill you.
Okay, I don't think it'll be a grill.
So this was an excellent presentation. It's great to get to know.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
absolutely. I did want to ask you about, you know, you've mentioned shifting in your work and photographing artists and creating your own artistic renderings, as well as doing portraits. So, you know, how did you make these big departures and, you know, switching from one phase of your work to the next? Like, did you have an aha moment, or?
Like I said, it feeds very much in the theme going deep. I had to accept the fact that there were a lot of things that weren't necessarily open to me because I didn't always have representation. I mean, it's nice when somebody picks up the phone and calls you and says, hey, there's an event, you need to be there, bring your camera with you. But for most people that are in the business, they get an established rep. And they create conversation that you wouldn't have had otherwise because they get you work, they negotiate money. And I was kind of naive in the beginning. I was an entrepreneur and I really believed that I could get a lot of these assignments on my own. And it's a grueling process walking around with your book, dealing with people who might not otherwise be interested in even having a conversation. Overworked receptionist created career change. It's like, well, I know you're busy, but can I set up an appointment? Well, we're not seeing anybody at this time. Come back another time. So what does that mean? So that was like a door that closed in my face. So I had to take odd jobs. I had to do things, and sometimes there was things I didn't want, but photography was always in the back of my mind. It was always my focus. It was always shared with whatever else I was doing. But that was my 9 to 5, and the artwork was what I did when I dreamed, and when I slept, and when I was awake, and I was eating. So that was always something that, was always the uppermost in my mind.
Thank you. I didn't hear the story about Gordon Parks, so it was very exciting to hear about that.
Yeah, and I met him twice, and he was very nice to me, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity, like I said, be in the same space with such an icon, because he is a trailblazer in so many of the lives of Black photographers, and he certainly was, in my case.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing experience. You did mention when we talked before, though, about meeting another photographer, Richard Avedon. And could you just tell us what happened? Like, how did you meet him and how did that change your work?
I was kind of proud of myself because this was very well constructed for me. One of the many gigs I had when I was in New York trying to get work was I took a job as a courier, And in those days, we didn't have email, we didn't have electronic transfer like we do now, PDF files, that kind of thing. Everything had to be hand delivered. And it was funny to me because you could get into a building with package that you couldn't get into with an appointment. You couldn't get near certain people. They just wouldn't take the time to talk to you. Oh, I'm just starting out, I want you to see my book. No, we don't have time. But you could deliver packages all day long. I went to Condé Nast, I went to Ebony Magazine, I went to Essence, I went to all of the ad agencies in New York, and in this one particular occasion, I was in the shop. There were other delivery people in the room, and my dispatcher said, look, we want you to go uptown. It's a 2-part delivery. And one of the reasons why I started working for this company was one of their clients was the Ford modeling agency. I saw a guy on the street, and he was carrying one of their portfolios. I said, hey, which company do you work with? And he says, well, I work with Grace Air Courier, we're making those deliveries, So I was real excited because I thought, hey, I'm gonna be going to Condé Nast every day and hanging out with models and, having tea with editors. And the funny part about it was the first time I made a delivery, they sent me right to the back door. I never got anywhere near any of the editorial staff, not even passing. But in this one particular case, my dispatcher sent me on an assignment, and it had 2 parts to it. So the invoice was generated, and I was looking at it, and he spelled it incorrectly. He wrote Avdon, and I was like, you gotta be kidding. And I didn't say anything. I didn't make a stink because I could be wrong. I could have been any kind of company, Sure enough, it was the Richard Avedon studio on 70th Street. And I think I had kind of an out-of-body experience because when I first went into the studio, he had started working on the Unforgettable Women campaign, where he had swatches of models from different parts of the world, and they were still in their mocking stages before they went to print. And he had this image, and things to that. And so I was sort of in awe. I was just staring at him, and like, I've always liked his work, I've always liked his lighting, and I was an admirer of his work. But he was sitting at a table, not far from where I was standing. He was with other people. And I said, how you doing? Are you Avedon? He stuck his hand out and exchanged pleasantries. And I said, listen, I'd like to ask you a question because, I've been dabbling. I played it down. I said, I've been dabbling in photography for a while and something of a portrait background. What would you recommend for somebody really trying to get work? And he smiled and he said, well, you have to deconstruct what you're looking at. You have to take it apart and do it as a puzzle, put all of the elements, separate all of the elements, and then put them back together. And I said, okay, I was kind of doing that anyway, looking at colors and lighting and composition, and he favored gray background and I favored gray background, and that was a wonderful personal exchange, and I met one of my heroes in just that. I couldn't stay because I was on the clock. I wasn't going to try to climb on a man's lap, although that was something I considered doing. The second part of the delivery was even more fun. He was dropping off a big bundle of comp cards or some type of advertisements that were being printed out, and he knew the printer or something. So the delivery that he gave me was a big bundle. So I got back on the subway and I went across town, and I think I was on the Upper East Side. And I went into this building, and I was just getting toward the end of the day, and quite frankly, I had to use the restroom. So when I went into the apartment, I said, listen, I'm from the Avedon studio. Yeah, I played it up. I said, I'm making a delivery for Avedon. Do you mind if I use your restroom? And this Hispanic lady said, sure, go ahead, just come right out. So as I was coming into the doorway a second time, Mick Jagger and Jerry Hall were standing in the doorway. And I hadn't really followed her career. I didn't recognize her at first, but I recognized Mick Jagger right away. And she was yelling at me. She was like, are you going back? Are you making a return delivery? And I didn't answer right away because I was still staring at her. So she said, well, if you're not going back, then I'll just have somebody else do it. And that was the end of our conversation. And I went out the door as quickly as possible. But that was my Avedon delivery.
Excellent.
And that is not fabricated, that is true. She'll tell you that herself. She yelled at me, so.
Well, I mean, you've had a career spanning decades, and you're still working, and you have a current project that you're working on right now, and that's Obscura Darkroom. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I'm going to only tell you a little bit about it because it's still in its planning stages, and we're still really developing it. One of the nicest things about the young lady that I'm working with is Louisa Pizzone, is that she transitions very well between the old and new. She herself was a photographer for many years for the Star Ledger, and she's worked with the old guard as well as new people. She embraces digital as well as analog, very, very comfortably. And when I first heard about the project, I was a little skeptical, and I'm honest about that I didn't really know if a commercial darkroom would do well here in Newark, But there's a lot of photographers now that are embracing film. Thank goodness. And I remember days when I sat in the darkroom and my hands were, smelly with chemistry, and, I fogged the paper, or I didn't do the exposure, or I didn't count properly, or, I had to do the same thing more than once. So I was really, really, really pleased that was something that she wanted to embrace. And I said, I'm all for it. I brought my experience in the darkroom to what we're doing. And there's another gentleman working with us. His name is Christoph Davis. He's another photographer here in Newark, a fine documentarian photographer. And we're doing what we do. We're able to have classes, and we're working on workshops, all engaged in the darkroom, and people who are interested in fine art photography and putting it on the wall frame right here in Newark. So I'm really, really looking forward to all the things that will be accomplished. It's a very unique project, because like I said, I'm meeting 20-year-olds that want to shoot with a Hasselblad, and they want to print their own film, and it's just a beautiful thing to see. It's not everybody with a cell phone, not everybody doing digital. They've embraced analog, and I guess if they understand the process, they see it as just another tool that they can add to their repertoire.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited about this
I'm
darkroom.
very excited because, just the fun of having, I don't know if anybody in this audience has ever seen what a 4x5 internet looks like, but it's a negative that's the size of a postcard, and you retain so much detail that, you know, when you're working with a good camera, you can see all the minute detail. And that was something that they did a lot of in still photography when I was in school. And they have 8x10 film and 4x5 film that they're still using depending on the commercial studio. Not everything is digital, you know. And it's so nice to see the crisp detail that's been rendered from a negative that size. So I'm looking forward to it. We're gonna get a 4x5 negative carrier. We're gonna print some stuff out, so.
Awesome. And so before we end, can you just maybe tell people where they can find your work and where they can find out a little bit more about the darkroom?
The darkroom, as I said before, we're constantly in development. It's located and it's affiliated with Project for Empty Space. Rebecca Giampolmo is affiliated with the space, and she's, you know, been very instrumental in helping us get it started and get it off the ground. And you know, I'm so grateful to be a part of such a project. It's located at 800 Broad Street in Newark, and we're going to have classes and workshops and an open darkroom to the community, whoever is interested in it. And it's just something that people need to come out, you know, come out and see how we did it for, you know, 50 years before the iPhone was ever thought of. So I'm looking forward to, you know, lending my energies to that.
Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed hearing you speak. Hopefully the audience
Very
has
much.
too.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Awesome, thank you. So we'll take a little break, and then we are very excited to hear from Lisa Washington. So let's hang out for a few minutes, and then we'll start up again.
All right, guys, handling 2 cameras and 3 computers is not as easy as it looks.
Yeah, so thank you.
It's so easy, guys.
Yeah,
So
well,
good at it, Lola.
well, thank you guys very much for being such a patient audience.
Stafford, thank you for everything.
Now I-
Really, I'm so glad we had a chance to speak.
Hey, Colleen.
This is not mine.
All right. Yes, I'll take like 10, 15 minutes.
I know you got your info. Hey, how you doing, man?
I do. I've never worked on it myself, but when we got rid of our darker NJIT, we used to have this at we mainly only used our large format for demonstrations to the students, but they never really used that. It was all very